because I think everyone knows. I know all of you. So it's good to have you all here, and we're so excited to have this public talk and to welcome Nemanja Nestorović and Milivoje Raičević as visiting practitioners this week, both from Community Building Mitrovica, really fascinating and impressive community-based NGO working out of Kosovo, in Mitrovica in Kosovo. So Milivoje and Nemanja work for Community Building Mitrovica, a non-governmental peace and community building organization in northern Kosovo, where they serve as deputy director and communications monitoring and evaluation officer, respectively. CBM is an inter-ethnic organization of Serbs and Albanians that identifies, encourages, and facilitates joint actions of citizens in the region to promote cooperation, coexistence, and democratic values. And its aim is to restore the confidence and friendships that war and politics have destroyed. Nemanja here is a Kosovo Serb jointly running CBM with an ethnic Albanian woman. Nemanja believes that peaceful coexistence is possible and strives to serve as an example of this to young people in Mitrovica and across Kosovo. Nemanja has worked for CBM for 15 years, where he's been in a senior management position for the past 5 years. And he holds a master's degree in English language and literature from the University of Pristina in Kosovo. In his spare time, he also enjoys cooking. Mili has worked for a range of projects at CBM for the past 11 years, where his responsibilities have grown over time. He's managed public relations, maintained donor relationships, represented the organization to local authorities and other stakeholders, and developed programming and organized logistics for youth exchange programs, which brought youth from Serbia, Kosovo, France, and Germany to workshops aimed at improving civic engagement skills. We're very happy to have him back because he graduated with his Master's of Public Administration from Binghamton University in 2020, after receiving a very competitive and prestigious Fulbright scholarship to study in the US. So we're so excited. Please join me in welcoming Nemanja and Mili to Binghamton.
Yes, so thank you for having us. I mean, thanks for the nice introduction, and thank you about the comment of 15 years of now I feel so old. So yes, we are honored to be here with you. We had so different meetings with different people, with different students, and we felt like honored and privileged to share our personal story, but also our professional experience throughout the work. So without further ado, we will go deeper into our presentation about the role of CBM. But before, with the role of civil societies in peace building process as such. But before that, we need to give you a bit of a history. I think that the people from the Balkan, we like to talk about history a lot, and we always agree to disagree on the facts and figures that are there, but we always like to claim. So I will just give you some of the context analysis or some figures from the Kosovo as such. So I mean the relations between Kosovo Serbs and Albanians have been shaped by the very long history that dates since the medieval times when Kosovo was part of the Kingdom of Serbia, where the Albanians lived in the principalities, also maintaining their local autonomy. So even though we like to talk about the relations between Serbs and Albanians as something as a new or rather recent issue, I think that we have much more deeper connections that we like to admit. So again, after the 14th century and after the Ottoman kind of conquered the Balkans and the region, the relations continued to be maintained. So we had why we put this Kosovo battle is a significant actually event that kind of shaped also the history of the Serbs, but also this myth or Kosovo myth, as we like to call it, is still very much alive to this day. So in 1389, the Serbian forces fought the Ottoman Empire, and which led to the Ottoman rule for 5 centuries. During this period, Serbian and Albanian lands came under the Ottoman rule, as I said, and Ottoman rule led to shifts of religious and social structures, with the parts of the population converting to Islam over the time. And both Serbs and Albanians during this period were incorporated into Ottoman military and administrative systems. Under the Ottoman rule, Albanians and Serbs also experienced different cultural and religious influences. Most of the Albanians were, converted or embraced Islam, while the Serbs kept or maintained their Christian Orthodox religion. During the 19th century, as the Ottoman power kind of weakened, Serbs and Albanians began to pursue their national aspirations. Serbia gained its independence in 1878. Within the Ottoman Empire, culminating in the Albanian League of Prizren, which aimed to unify the Albanian territories at the time. During the 20th century and after the Balkan Wars, they led to expulsion of the Ottoman Empire from the Balkans, with also a significant Albanian population. Those were integrated in the Kingdom of Serbia, which later created the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenia, which was later known as Yugoslavia. During the Second World War, and after the Second World War, Kosovo was reintegrated into Yugoslavia under Tito's rule, where I would say that this marks, golden era of Yugoslavia at the time, but it also follows the complexities of the relations between the Serbs and Albanians during the time. During this period after the Second World War, lots of the Albanians, as the nation that lived in Kosovo, kind of wanted the greater autonomy, which resulted in the 1974 constitution that gave with the constitutional reforms that kind of gave lots of autonomy for the ethnic Albanians in Kosovo. However, you can move to the next slide. However, after Tito's death, the Slobodan Milošević, who came to power in 1989, actually coming to power by holding his infamous speech in Kosovo Polje, which is the area where this great Kosovo battle took place in 1389. And with his rise, it revoked Kosovo's autonomy, which lots of Albanians considered as repressive and very discriminatory towards the Albanians. By the late 90s, tensions expanded, so independence struggle and deteriorations of the relations. Kosovo Albanians resisted the Milošević regime, and this is also the time when Kosovo Albanians established a parallel government. At the same time, Kosovo Liberation Army arose, so to say, during the 90s, initiating armed conflict against Serbian forces and also against Serbian people in some regions of Kosovo. Really? Yes. So this resulted, the whole deterioration of relations resulted to Kosovo War, which basically started in 1998 and 1999, and I was 16 and 17 when this was happening. So I remember it quite vividly. And there were moments in time when I come from Mitrovica, but my school was in the south part of Mitrovica, which is inhabited by Albanians now. But at that time, this was a multi-ethnic setting. But there were times when we couldn't go to school because there were riots and demonstrations. There were kidnappings and abductions, and there were different incidents happening almost daily that kind of shaped also my youthhood when I was growing up. So the ethnic tensions escalated in a full-scale war on the ground, and NATO alliances launched a bombing in 1999, forcing Milošević withdrawal from Kosovo, and Serbian army, police, and paramilitary forces. Then the agreement was signed in North Macedonia with the 1244 resolution. Really? Yeah, you can. Yeah, so the events following the peace agreement actually led to Serbs fleeing and living in enclaves, while the Albanians returning back to Kosovo. During this period also there was lots of retaliation, because during the war itself, over 800,000 Kosovo Albanians were forcefully expelled from their homes to the neighboring countries like Albania, North Macedonia, partly to Montenegro as well. As a retaliation measures, Kosovo Serbs were actually expelled from their homes. Over 200,000 Serbs were expelled, and then the UN administration was installed in 2000s, and it's still up and running to a certain degree. Then Kosovo Albanians begin rebuilding and asserting control over the territory. However, the north part of Kosovo kind of remained isolated in terms of the territory as such, or being governed by the UN or Kosovo as such. In 2008, Kosovo declares unilateral independence. Just to give some information, that Serbia still doesn't recognize Kosovo as an independent country. 5 EU member states do not recognize Kosovo as an independent country, each for its own reasons. Also, Russia and China do not recognize Kosovo as an independent country. However, over 100 countries worldwide recognize Kosovo and its independence. Again, this was mentioned, so division between Kosovo Serbs and Albanians persists, and tensions begin being deepened. Yes, so I think that it is important that during this period, after the declaration of independence, EU actually facilitated the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina to normalize relations, which led to the 2013 Brussels Agreement, which entitled to Serbian-run institutions to be integrated into Kosovo legal framework. And political tensions persist, particularly status of the northern Kosovo, because even though Kosovo declared its independence, it didn't kind of govern the entire territory. This territory of the North Kosovo, where our city is located, kind of remained as a no man's territory, because Serbia didn't have its full authority over the territory, and Kosovo also didn't fully kind of cover took the coverage of the territory of the north, which kind of created the fruitful soil, so to say, and conditions for the smuggling, for illegal smuggling, for the lots of crimes to happen. So even the UNMIK, or United Nations mission at the time was very reluctant to kind of deal with the entire issue of the north. Yes, so more about Kosovo context, that it continued its own administrative structure, like the Serbian community, through local government, education system, and healthcare, which is funded, and this system still exists. Sorry, governed by Serbia, yes. So, which additionally divides the communities that is already fully divided, because both governments do not recognize its own structures there, and we like to say that depending on which side of the bridge you are standing at certain point of time, in our own time, Raičević Mitrovica, you are considered parallel or illegal. Kosovo Serbs, however, do have representation in Kosovo Assembly, and the parties advocating for their interests, but many prefer to align with Serbian political entities. The Serbian political representatives that are part of the Kosovo government are not fully representing the needs of the people on the ground. And this is something where we as an NGO, as civil society activists and actors, kind of play an important role. More about the Mitrovica context, Billy will give you some.
Yes. Thank you, Nemanja. So we wanted to dedicate one part of our talk about city of Mitrovica, which is very, very unique for the Kosovo context, and the city where Nemanja and I were born and raised and grew up, and now live and work to this day. When we say unique, you will see maybe through our conversation and the talk why we use the term unique. Unfortunately, in some cases, it's not really for the good reasons. So just to give you some context, and you can see from the picture some of the landmarks of our city. The structure of it is that it inhabitates 85,000 people and approximately 20,000 Serbs, and around 60,000 Albanians live there. But these are two major ethnic groups that live: Kosovo Albanians and Kosovo Serbs. But we do have other minority groups such as Bosniaks, Gorani, Turks, Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptians. So it's a very vibrant city, very diverse, different ethnicities. So imagine that is what Kosovo was also in the past, like rich with different ethnicities, and pre-war, very, very kind of appreciated and unique from that perspective.
So sorry to interrupt, David, but go back to the previous slide. The images here that you have, these are the landmarks of Mitrovica, very significant and very important. Like the big monument here that you have, like with two pillars. This monument is dedicated to the fallen miners. Mitrovica is an industrial city, and the miners of different ethnicities kind of opposed the Nazis during Second World War and have been shot by the Nazis at the time. So the Yugoslavia at the time erected this monument that is a very significant landmark of our hometown. Every person that you meet, wherever they are, if you ask them about this monument, if they are truly originally from Mitrovica, they will know this monument as well. So of course the mosque, the church, which was built after in 2004, because
the church that the city has was in the south part of Mitrovica, and then Serbian community couldn't, because of the risks and all the problems and challenges that we had, couldn't go and attend the church. So the church was built in 2008?
From 2004 till 2008. Yeah, and this is the famous / infamous bridge that separates the two parts. It's not really, a Golden Gate bridge. It's not that big. It's very small.
Yeah, this is the bridge, and from this perspective, you see the south part of the city. It's taken from the northern part, and as you can tell, like here, we have NATO troops that are still 24/7 present at the bridge, and it's been going on like that since after the war. As we were saying, so the city is divided into two parts: the south part, that is predominantly inhabited by Kosovo Albanians, and the north part, looking from this side, which is predominantly inhabited by a Serbian community. Although in the northern part, we do have several neighborhoods that are mixed. My neighborhood is one of those. So I grew up. I had an apartment near the bridge. So when David visited Kosovo, so I was telling him the story where I grew up. But I grew up at my grandparents' place in that mixed neighborhood. So for me, having different ethnicities and different communities around was a normal thing. So the war, ending that for me was a really, really kind of like, I couldn't believe why anything was happening, but I was 10 at that time. So there are a couple of neighborhoods there that still have other Albanian community, Bosniak community, Roma, Turks, Gorani, Ashkali, and Egyptians living in the north. Both sides, since after the war, they have parallel systems. So the northern part where Serbs lived, we have an educational system, health system, and other bodies that are funded by Serbia. And then in the south part, of course, we have a Kosovo government that is running and operating. So you have two municipalities, we have two school systems, we have two healthcare systems, and basically this point here at the bridge serves as a big division for the community. That is what it's kind of unique for the Kosovo context, because there is no other city in Kosovo that is kind of has this clear division into two parts. So we wanted to kind of give you some of the images of the bridge. So this is the bridge before the war, and this is taken from the south part, looking at the north. But at that time, it was one city, and everything was fine. And then this is immediately after the war. So you have you can see here the NATO troops bridge was closed for the traffic, for pedestrians. Anybody who wanted to cross for some reason, they had to show ID. So basically, it was already
like a checkpoint.
For the NATO troops. But basically, since that time, people did not cross and didn't move. And then slowly, we have the developments of two community and two systems since that time. 2001, the bridge was rebuilt, and this is how it's looking to today as well. It had many different interesting stories about the bridge. It's always a hot spot. Some of the clashes during the 1999 and 2000 happened on the bridge. So you have Albanians from one side and Serbs from the other side meeting at that point and fighting and throwing rocks and bombs, and many awful things were happening. And then a lot of people, as international community intervened, they had different ideas of what the bridge could be. So we had at one point, somebody wanted to have the bridge as a peace park. So they brought the soil, they brought some flowers, and they wanted to have like a nice landmark in that aspect.
They symbolically named it the Peace Park.
Yes. While all of the issues are still ongoing among community, they were like, let's have a peace park. And then Albanian community heavily protested. There were some riots, and then they removed it overnight. And then in 2012, so in a way of protest for Kosovo special forces entering the northern part, some of the Serbian groups decided to place barricades in the form of
piles of dirt, timber, and
soil, whatever, so that they could prevent physically entering any vehicle and anybody from the southern part going into the north. And this way over here is where Nemanja and I go to work. So this is basically us every day, every morning, going to the other side and going to work. But interestingly enough, we were thinking that those times were bad. Yeah. We have kind of like deterioration of the relations even stronger to this day. But we will talk about it later. I have one video for you. It's very short, but it will give you maybe a closer image to closer look to the bridge and the whole the division of the city. I don't know how to play.
Try just pressing the next button and it might play itself.
Here?
Yep.
It takes just a minute to walk across this bridge over the Ibar River in the city of Mitrovica. And yet, it's a journey that takes you back years. For the past 2 decades, Kosovo's northernmost city has been on a fault line between Serbs in the north and ethnic Albanians in the south. It is still taboo to see members of either community cross the bridge and mix together. Most young people born since the war ended have never crossed to the other side. Those who have say they went surreptitiously.
I have been a couple of times on the other side of the bridge just out of curiosity. Compared to our Albanian part, the Serb quarters is underdeveloped, dirty, nothing connects me with that part of the city.
On the south side, apart from the NATO troops patrolling, it's hard to tell the life in Mitrovica is any different to any other city in Kosovo. But crossing the bridge feels like a venture into a different country. Hundreds of Serbian flags hang over the main street, the cars' registration plates are Serbian, and pro-Russian murals decorate the walls. Kosovo is Serbia, Crimea is Russia. Reads one and the letter Z, the symbol of Russian military since the Ukraine war's onset. Kosovo declared independence from Serbia in 2008, a move recognized by more than 100 nations, but rejected by Serbia and the local Serbs. Last week, the situation in the Serb majority north of Kosovo deteriorated after ethnic Albanian mayors elected after Serbs officials resigned en masse in late 2022 took office in 4 northern municipalities. Serbs abandoned the subsequent vote to elect their replacements following calls to do so from Serbia. Local Serbs gathered in front of town halls to prevent the Albanian mayors from entering their offices. That was enough for Serbia to send troops to the Kosovo border and for Kosovo to put police and NATO's 3,800 strong peacekeeping force on standby. Violence erupted on Monday afternoon when protesters used makeshift weapons and homemade fire bombs against NATO troops and set police cars on fire.
The purpose of recent escalation in the north of Kosovo is to increase political bargaining. With the Franco-German draft plan, it is sought to exchange the recognition of Kosovo from Serbia with a greater autonomy of the Serbian Kosovo. However, what kind of autonomy it will be, it will not depend on the rhetorical skills of the Kosovo Prime Minister or the Serbian President, but will depend on the situation on the ground. And this race for who will have control in the north of Kosovo risks leading us to a war between the two countries in the coming months.
Tatjana Lazarević, editor of North Kosovo's days portal Kosev, says Kosovo authorities are to blame for insecurity.
Most responsible for this large insecurity, feeling of insecurity and uncertainty at Kosovo Prime Minister.
Also one of the wealthiest areas in the former Yugoslavia, the struggling city is split into two due to the political upheaval, ethnic tensions, and the painful memories. While Southern Mitrovica claimed to be part of the independent state of Kosovo, Northern Mitrovica both allegiances to Serbia, and the Ibar River, who splits the city center, acts as a political and ideological barrier.
The new generation hopes that one day the conflict that has dominated Kosovo for so long will be replaced with peace and unity. Abdullah Habib, TRT World, Mitrovica, Kosovo.
So yeah, maybe that gave you a bit of a clearer picture of what the whole the challenge and the reality that we live and work. So and the tension, the escalation and the fighting part with the NATO troops was something that can happen anytime, and we experience that also by living and working there, and it affects our work in big times. The current challenges, tension still among Kosovo Serbs and Kosovo Albanians is higher than the recent years, because recently we have sudden actions by the Kosovo government. Sudden actions meaning that they, through Brussels agreement, Serbia and Kosovo, they are signing some of the points that need to be implemented. However, those actions sometimes are happening very sudden, very overnight, that people object and resist, because it's leaving them with certain no alternatives, but also kind of really complicates their lives. So, for example, we had the banning of the Serbian car license plates, which prevents you to move and to drive your vehicles. We had shutting down of Serbian-funded institutions and banning the use of the Serbian dinar as currency. This left major impact on the Serbian community, especially those who are most vulnerable groups, such as pension receivers and social welfare. So now, because there are no Serbian dinars and they are still receiving money from Serbia, they have to go to the first Serbian city up north in order to get their money, get their pension, get their documents, use the post office. So those sudden actions don't really, they don't have any benefits towards the community. Also, Nemanja can tell you maybe the installing of the police bases.
Yes, so following some of the actions that are contradictory to the Brussels agreement, the Kosovo government also installed police bases in the north, which now, after the Serbs withdrew from the institutions, those are the structures of the police that are present in the north are mono-ethnic, so to say, and they don't speak local languages. So even if you get stopped by the police, you a regular citizen of the north would, having hardships of communicating to the police officers, and these bases are being installed in contradiction to the whole Brussels agreement and the deploying of the special police forces. For example, in some of the parts of the north, we have special police forces who are with full war equipment, with heavy machinery and guns, controlling the traffic. And this is something that people kind of always react to and kind of try to showcase to the government that they have nothing against the police as such, but the special police forces and the brutality that comes along with their presence is something that they are very much against of.
And Serbia president during this time, he's when he speaks to the public about these issues, because Kosovo, Serbian community kind of like, wants to direct the hope towards the Serbian authorities. He always says that, we are not abandoning our people in Kosovo, but in reality, he has no power or nothing to do about it because it was signed in Brussels. But the people are mad because they don't have any alternatives. So while they are not opposing Brussels agreement and implementation of the points that were agreed, and the integration of some of the aspects into Kosovo's system, it is being done in a way that, leading people without either question about it, whether they want to. There are no basically alternatives as we said.
And how those impact their ordinary lives. You for example, you want to apply for a cadastry document to register your property or a house. You go there, and then there are officials who don't speak your language. So you either communicate with them in English because they don't speak Serbian, and according to the constitution, Serbian is official language in Kosovo. But then, since you don't have Serbian representatives in the institutions, it's very hard for you to even get. And also, the officials would say, yeah, well, since we don't have enough manpower, you have to kind of wait for years. People wait for years now just to get like cadastry document that will give them the documentation in case they want to sell a house or pass on this house to their kids or their spouse and to their family members.
Now we come to CBM. Do you want to
start this? Well, yeah, what was said earlier, and then with all the problems and all the challenges that we faced back in 2001, there was a Dutch organization that came to Kosovo soon after the war, when the relations were completely separated. There was like KFOR, and people didn't even cross or were daring to cross to the other side of the bridge. There was a Dutch organization that came with an international project that kind of fostered the safe space for people to meet and work on some specific and concrete projects on the ground. And in 2001, the project of community building was established. Later,
the offices were here.
Yes, so the offices were strategically located near the bridge because we wanted to be as near as possible to both sides of the town, as well as the beneficiaries from all of the region. At that time, we had one community center actually in the northern part that was designed for the like a women's center where women could come and work on some small projects. In 2003, the organization was registered as an independent organization. What some of the key features or characteristics or identities of Community Building Mitrovica is that we are multi-ethnically composed organization since day one. That's number one, and that we are very much grassroots organization. So very often when designing our programs, we consult with the communities, with beneficiaries, with different target groups that we work with about developing and designing these programs and initiatives, not just for the sake of having the programs, but we will want to have something that they find interesting and is something meaningful and impactful for their own communities that they live with. Some of the programs that we focus and the target groups that we work with are youth, women, media, also local and central institutions, and other civil society organizations. The special emphasis that we put on our youth. The reason why is that because those are most sensitive and most marginalized group as such. And just to give you like if I could call it a fun fact, that we have youngsters from Mitrovica who are in their early 20s, but they've never had the chance to meet peers from different ethnic background ever in their life. They live in, for me, Mitrovica is one city. I don't see this north and south part. So you have youngsters who have never had the chance to either meet or even hear Serbian or Albanian in person or talking to someone from other community. Again, we like to think of ourselves that we are a role model of multi-ethnic cooperation, contributing to, in our modest way, I have to say, to peace building, conflict transformation, and reconciliation. Unfortunately, due to the political development and deterioration of relations between Kosovo and Serbia as such, it's civil society that is one of the key actors,
force.
yes, key actors in the field that kind of still tries to bring communities together and work on the reconciliation and peace building. Yes, so
some of the, we can briefly mention some of the work that CBM does. So the conflict transformation and the reconciliation processes, we always get that asked that question, like how do you do it? So we always say that we don't gather a group of people and we don't tell them like, now you have to make peace and you have to reconcile with one another. But we kind of, for us, it's important that they make that contact. So they made that first step. But through addressing the needs that our city and the region around our city faces. So the war didn't really, war as such left many consequences, negative consequences in our society. So in the aspect of the economy, social aspects as well, being, people away from each other, cultural as well, life totally was disappeared, and Mitrovica was known as a city of rock music, city of many cultural events. People from different cities in Kosovo were coming, to go out to attend some concerts and gigs, and we had rock bands. Everything was disrupted, after the war. So we do a lot of community initiatives. We do also policy advocacy through some of our programs, and we do capacity building across sectors and ethnic groups. The socioeconomic impact that we do, it's mostly on a local level, and it's mostly done with women as one of our target groups. We mentioned maybe in some of the classes, and you heard us speaking, that women are really so resilient in Kosovo, much more resilient than men. They are much more, staying away from the stigma of the war, not really caring about, how they would, if somebody would judge them, if somebody would have any negative comments, if they work together with Albanian community or Serbian community and vice versa. And we, through our needs assessment and through focus groups and through talking to women, we ask them like what exactly are their needs. And they always mention that local economy is because they want to work. They want to be empowered through work, and they want to earn money, and they want to be economically independent and also sustainable. And Kosovo being a patriarchal and man-dominated society kind of makes sense. And we were lucky enough that throughout the years, we supported more than 100 women who attended trainings about opening up a small business and running a small business, all the legal aspects that come into that place. But also 33 women were granted small-scale grants. They were around $4,000, which was significant enough to kind of help them start their own business
the existing one.
And expand the existing one. One of the spin-offs of our work with women was that there was an association established, Women Association in Business. So now they operate on their own, and they have women who run it, and they continue that work. Maybe one of the milestones that we like to mention as a spin-off is that in the past we had a project called Mitrovica Rock School. We gathered youngsters, and we were providing trainings for them to learn to play instruments and to learn vocals. And that resulted in forming into a multi-ethnic band, and they were performing in different cities in Kosovo, also in the region, in other countries as well. And it grew so much that they also became an independent, and now they are also registered as an NGO, and they continue that work.
So CBM work, as I've mentioned, involves a lot about youth. So one of the key target groups that we meet. Yes, so we were on a hiking mountain area. Yeah, so we pay so much of emphasis on the informal education. The youth in Mitrovica or in Kosovo in general work from or learn from two different curricula from two different systems, often contradicting one another, especially history that nobody wants to tackle with. So through civic education program and schools, we enable youngsters the opportunity to learn extracurricular type of activities and classes such as critical thinking, debating, soft skills development through English language, because we don't speak each other's language. That's the unfortunate part. You in the school system in both sides, you get like your mother tongue, of course, but you get English, German. In some schools, there is also Russian being offered as one of the languages, but not Albanian or Serbian, which is so unfortunate because I belong to a generation of people that had Albanian during the first and second grade of elementary school. So I remember that I was so proud, even to this day. I mean, it's so strange that even to this day, I know an Albanian song from the school that is like, so like, maybe you know, yeah, Koha Ec and Koha Shkon. So it's like very, it's very, but I still know it to this day. I forgot some of the things that I learned during my studies, but that one kind of imprinted in my memory.
But that is also, sorry for interrupting, but that also like maybe is showing you how the political aspect of it is really complex, that even if you have local languages in schools, you don't get to, so you don't get the government do not really want to have the classes and provide classes for kids to learn about it. So you have to find your own way to learn the language if you want to, but it's not really, we don't have it in schools.
Yes,
And
so through these youth engagement programs, apart from civic education schools, we allow, or we give the possibility for the youngsters to organize community activities, which are their ideas of how they see this community work, something that they want to work on. Just a nice example that our hometown of Mitrovica faces the significant issue of stray dogs. There are lots of stray dogs that are being taken by no one. Actually, the municipalities or the government as such is really failing to control the number of the stray dogs. So the youngsters have decided to organize themselves in form of raising some funds for the neutering and getting the dogs necessary shots. So they were like, okay, we need to meet somewhere. Can we use your offices? And we said, of course, yes. So they met there. So Serbs and Albanians from both sides, they came there, they organized their activities, they went to the vet, they did all. And after that, they created an informal group on Facebook where they continued communicating, like, because the dogs know for no borders, they cross from one side of the town to another, and then they communicate like, okay, whatever, Benny is in your part of the town, please take care of him because he needs to get additional, so very small and very impactful initiatives that we support
for the things that are neglected by local authorities and also central authorities, and that people face challenges with every day.
Yeah, and summer and winter camps is something that is very popular and something that the youth are very interested in attending. They get like out somewhere in the mountain area. We have beautiful mountains in Kosovo, so we take them in this remote area outside of their reality, so to say, where they escape for a couple of days and then they work on a developed program in outdoor and indoor activities.
And then when it comes to media work, I think local and central media, we were working really closely with them since the establishment of CBN. Media in Kosovo right now, if you open some of the outlets and portals and different groups, you can only hear about the current news, oftentimes negative news. So these positive personal stories are really neglected. So when we work with them, one of the challenges that media face in Kosovo is that they don't have enough staff to kind of like go in the field and really develop and cover stories that are happening on the ground, that we are witnessing, that we are also part of as well. So we were trying to kind of like raise their capacities in investigating these positive stories, because we kind of aim that the media has some sort of space for these positive stories so that people can read more about them and get, so that becomes a bit of reality. So they don't hear only about bad news, that there is also another side of it. So we did support throughout some of the programs. We were providing this, besides capacity building, we also were supporting them through small scale grants, kind of giving them a little bit of incentives to go, do the extra hours of work in the field, and then so they can publish these stories, how Serbs and Albanians actually cooperate, and that the cooperation doesn't really stop in some of the aspects. This is
one of the programs, yes, that we have been implementing since 2012. Since we are a donor-dependent organization, this was supported by the U.S. Embassy in Kosovo, Access Program, Micro-Scholarship Program that offers the youngsters to, it is a 2 years program that offers them possibility to learn English language and IT classes. Like these are for free, but more importantly, that this is the for us again as the organization is the emphasis on enabling them possibility to meet each other, and then throughout the 2 years program they create bonds. We also had some cases when the two young participants of the program fall in love, and then we're like, okay, how do we deal with this? Like, what do we tell to their parents? Like, are we going to get backlash from the communities? But it's always interesting to see how young people do find the common language, which is, in most of the cases it's through English, but it's through social media as well, like TikTok and whatever, other platforms that they Snapchat. So they add each other, and it's interesting for them to communicate in other community language, because they have the desire to also learn some of the words, especially the cussing and the bad words that they. So you could see that sometimes they use nicknames that are very typical for one or the other community, and then for us, even after the program ends, these bonds remain. So some of them either apply for the internship at our organization or other organizations, and we liaise them or guide them through some of the opportunities that are available in Kosovo regarding the expansion of their education or the possibilities to study either abroad or in Kosovo. So some of the outcomes that would come from the program is that we build tolerance together with them, and they are interested in the activities that they come up with. So the ideas would come from them. Sometimes they will just mark some of the significant dates throughout the year, like World International Day Against Hate Speech, or World Peace Day, or Earth Day, where they plant trees together, or they do a cleanup action of certain part of the town. Some of the activities that they really find interesting, again, youngsters who have never had the chance to meet each other, they've never also had the chance to either go to a church or to a mosque. So we take them to these cultural visits where they go for the first time into a mosque, and they talk to the priests or the imams from the mosque about how significant the cultural heritage aspect is, and how this belongs to everyone. It doesn't have an ethnic label as such. It's not only mine or yours, but it belongs to the community as such. So these are also like groundbreaking kind of activities that they come up like really thinking about who they are and how diverse and how rich Kosovo is to them.
What is interesting for me is when we, through this program, the first contact, when we have first activity, and we have a group of kids from Serbian community, Albanian community, and other minorities, they go away from each other. So if it's like a bus that we take them to the exchange, half of the bus is, only Albanian seat, the other one is Serbian. They are kind of like hesitant to even interact with each other
At the beginning.
At the beginning, that is the first contact. When we return them, it's a whole different story. They realize that there are people, that they are, the same age, that they have the same issues, they have the same interest. They find a way to communicate. They find a way to kind of break this barrier on their own. But it's, of course, I can proudly say it's possible because CBM made that first point. So again, about access programs. This is some of the activities. This is a community activity that these youngsters developed on their own. They wanted to help one school with the Down syndrome kids, and they were together building, planting flowers and kind of refurbishing the area. And this is a photo from one of the activities from the summer camp.
Yes, we also work on prevention of violent extremism, not necessarily through the forms of religion as such, but we do work on different levels with this topic. again, one of the key aspects that we involve, our key target groups are youth, because those ethno-nationalism remains one of the key drivers of force, especially among youngsters. So through this program, we try to engage. We have developed this program to engage the most vulnerable groups within the schools. So the ones that face different challenges, either that they are bullied in school, or that are bullies in the school, or that are facing like economic disparities, or are kind of not performing well in school. So we talk to the staff from the school, so with the psychologists and trained staff, to identify those individuals and get them engaged in some of the programs like the Resilient and Inclusive Communities program. And then we have we get approached by their parents, who tell us like, okay, whatever you do, something is happening like for better for the kid of mine, because you see that these kids do have the potential but lack opportunities, because I mean in our, probably that's everywhere, but in our culture it's like the ones who already perform well are being extra rewarded by being engaged in different activities or extracurricular classes, or get the opportunities to do different things, but not these very specific target groups that are kind of prone to be engaged into violent extremism as such. So this is the one of the components. We also work with central institution and frontline workers and what their role is. We also have quite a good cooperation to this regard in working with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, because this program also involved returnees from foreign fighters actually who went to Syria and Iraq, and their integration into the society, because after they return or are being sent back to Kosovo, they face discrimination, they face challenges of integrating into society. So we do support them through professional rehabilitation and integration into community, different types of programs through the youth empowerment, but also we have tutoring classes for some of the youngsters who, together with their parents, were in Syria or in Iraq and they don't speak local languages. So we provide them language courses, but also we provide them,
in Iraq.
Yeah, so we also provide them with psychosocial support, but we also strengthen local civil society organization on prevention of violent extremism and reintegration and rehabilitation. Again, these are the programs that I just talked about, and some of the highlights is that we organize also these interactive inter-ethnic camps, some of the images and the pictures from the activities themselves. Yes. Some of the, maybe shortly.
Yeah, we kind of put some slides about bragging about CBM's milestones over the years. I've talked about Mitrovica Rock School, Mitrovica Women Association for Human Rights and Business Association. Nemanja, this is more on your
through a program that we had with the Norwegian Embassy in Kosovo, we have developed a master program at the University of Pristina, Faculty of Law, for the Peacebuilding, Human Rights and Transitional Justice, which was accredited last year. So the first generation of graduates is about to graduate this year at the Faculty of Law. At the same time, we have also published a book about like a jurisprudence and mass atrocities worldwide, 210 cases, so that it could be used as a additional resource for the students of the Faculty of Law and the MA students at the Faculty of Pristina.
These images are from one of our activities that we organize and initiatives. This first one is from the first ever coffee fest in Mitrovica that was organized.
Coffee.
Yes.
We don't grow our coffee here. No.
So through our needs assessment and through working with our groups, we were trying to design something that, we always ask what is something that Mitrovica needs and what are the needs of the communities. And first two things were, again, local economy, supporting and promoting local economy. And the second one was having fun. So they said like Mitrovica lacks a lot of fun activities, festivals, and concerts and many cultural things. And then we were thinking how we can combine those two things and have something that is common for all communities living in Kosovo, and that was drinking coffee. So coffee is something that we do from the morning and up until the evening. But it's not just like drinking coffee, it's more about the social aspect of it. So we don't take coffee to go, we sit and we enjoy coffee, we talk about good
And coffee
bad
is
things.
so good. So
Yes, so we welcome you to come to Kosovo
Yes, you
and
need to
have
try.
coffee. Have coffee with us. And we kind of came to the idea to organize Coffee Fest, so which will promote local vendors. They can sell their products, but we kind of like turned it into a community event and a festival. So we also had a program where we had Mitrovica Rock School performing. These kids that are a new band that from new generation. We had different other bands, and then at the end of the fest, we also had two DJs, one from Serbian community, one from Albanian community, to kind of like wrap up the whole day. We thought that important thing to mention is that it was being organized at the main bridge. So that was, I don't think nobody ever did anything on the main bridge because of the obvious problems and the challenges that you mentioned. We kind of wanted to bring back the image that the bridge is a point of connection among communities living there, not a point of division. We thought it was a bit risky move for us. Everybody was, asking us, "Are you crazy? It's going to be dangerous. Maybe somebody will have a problem with it." But we took all the necessary measures to make sure that everybody is safe. And we expected that maybe like a couple hundred people will show up and like not really pay attention to it. And we had more than 1,500 throughout one day. And they were, complimenting us and congratulating us and asking us whether it's going to last for 2 or 3 days. So this is something that we have in mind to organize in the future. And the other picture is from a community market, again organized at the main bridge. So we invited the local vendors from both sides of the city to present their products, whatever they're selling, whatever they are making. And a lot of them are female-owned businesses. So again, in that way, we are supporting local community. But again, for us is that we do it on the main bridge, where again, point of contact for community members. Plus, we establish connection between the women from both sides of the city, so they can network, so they can connect, and they can find also ways how to expand their businesses. Okay, so this is briefly about our milestones and about the context and our work. And we thank you for the attention. But now we have time for your questions and answers.
yes.
I had no idea what any of this was very nice to get some information about it. My question is regarding your youth programs and essentially shaping an open ideology for these youth to accept one another. Do you hope or think it's possible to extend that to internal policy change to reform the different educational institutions in both the South and North parts?
Oh yes, we do hope, and we did have attempts as well. We didn't mention, but through one program we did civic peace. So we wrote and we published a civic peace education manual, and we were hoping to work closely with the Ministry of Education in Kosovo, because we thought that is really important for the kids, and as you said, like it's an important issue to be tackled with, but we didn't really have a good kind of. Not that they didn't like the idea, the Ministry of Education, but they said like there are many things that are beyond us that we cannot really, help you with. They openly told us this can never be accepted in the curricula at this moment, maybe in future stages. We kind of like welcome you to continue to do that, but we don't really like bother asking us all the time to be. We wanted the peace education manual to be incorporated into at least some of the extracurricular classes or extra credit classes, So we failed in that from the central level. But we did continue working with schools and with different, because the manual was done in a really practical way. So it really has the concrete steps of how the peace education can be done, and what does it mean specifically for the youngsters, and how it can reshape their attitudes. We did succeed to have the manual adopted by International Business College in Mitrovica, which is a multi-ethnic college, and that it's now being taken over by the government, by the state. So it's state-funded college. And we did have first students who took that class. It was an extra. They said, like, we cannot officially have that as a class right now, but we are offering to the students to attend it as an extra credit course. So we did have. It's a start. It's a beginning, but we do have attempts to continue that and to have it maybe someday adopted by the ministry. Yes.
I'd like to, first of all, I really appreciate it. Very impressive presentation. I also wanted to ask about for English Access Micro Scholarship Program. I was also implemented in Burma in almost 8 years in SS program. I was 2 years taking as a director of the program. So how you recruit for the, that is very,
Yeah.
I also collaborated with the government school or no,
But there are different ways of how we communicate with this with our beneficiaries. Usually it's through a public call. That's one of the steps. Through our social media, we are very present and active there. But also since we exist for so many years, we have quite a large network of organizations and individuals that we work with or we have worked with in the past. At the same time, we also use our personal connections, I have to say. I mean, coming from a very small community, we'll know quite a lot of people. So we offer these opportunities to the youngsters that we know that might be interested. At the same time, we do have, for example, for the schools in south part of Mitrovica, we have quite okay cooperation, I would say, because we go there and we tell them, okay, we are going to maybe organize an info session for a certain age group. So maybe they want to attend this. It's very attractive for them. These are the benefits of it. When it comes to the schools in the north part, because they are being run under the Serbian system, which Kosovo doesn't recognize those, and those don't recognize us because we are registered in Kosovo. So again, complexity there, but still we do manage to go on a personal basis because one of my cousins is a principal at one of the schools, so we go there and being low profile, so to say, and we tell them, okay, we have a nice program. Is it okay if we share a brochure? And we get a silent yes. So we also we are very much adaptive, so to say. We have to kind of play smart in how to have the biggest outreach and to have as many young people as possible. And this was done in different parts of Kosovo where the communities live next to each other but don't have possibilities to cooperate. So, and it's a 2-year program, so it creates bonds. After 2 years, it's natural. It comes natural that people kind of bond and create certain connections and relations and even friendships in some cases.
And after a couple of years, it goes word to mouth. So these kids tell their peers and they say, we had an amazing time and it's a great program. They learned a lot. They learn English and IT first, but then they also, do a lot of community engagement, community activities, marking of the day, and they have fun, through these activities. So in that regard, I think we were lucky enough that it's the good word is spread out to.
And because Mitrovica doesn't have a lot of opportunities,
yes.
Everything is central based, so everything goes in the capital. So all the opportunities are there, and since there is so much of lack of opportunities for the young people to get engaged into something rather than the official school. So this also helps us because we offer something different for these youngsters, and also the parents themselves are very, very open to kind of have their kids get involved into the programs because again, lack of opportunities. The only thing that they have to do is they finish with school, they go back to Mitrovica is a very big region that it has lots of rural areas, so they go back to their villages and they have nothing to do. So in this regard, we also use this, logic that, there is an opportunity for your kid. like it doesn't have to be this program, but also throughout this program, he or she or they will get the opportunity to maybe be part of other programs that are through Erasmus or through some other education institutions that offer there. Just now, there is a program by the American University in Kosovo that offers free college studies for the high schoolers in Kosovo. So we also share those opportunities that some of the participants of our program find very beneficial. And the parents themselves very often come, okay, one of my kids was part of the program. Do you have another program? Because another kid of mine is of age to be part of some of the programs there. So again, we were very lucky in this regard, I have to say.
But I think it's also because of I always have to say, and I think I mentioned in one of the classes that our organization has a really honest goal. And I think people recognize that after the first activity or the first time when they send their kids to our programs. Yes.
Thanks for this great talk. Something that struck me while you were speaking was the generational cohorts that you're dealing with, and the young people are able to bond over things that are similar to their generation. And this might be kind of outside of your program, but I was just wondering, what are the differences between the generations, right? Of how people view each other. You have some people who, like you were saying, learned Albanian in school, were part of a different country and remember times of ethnic tolerance. Then you have some people born when Kosovo declared independence, so there's this huge variations. And how do you deal with that? What are the differences? I was just curious about how these different generations have different views on these things.
Okay, someone mentioned today during some of the classes, older generations, so I got personally offended by it. But yeah, so the older generations were kind of, because they lived this pre and post kind of war and having different perspectives from being a minority in once Yugoslavia, now being majority in Kosovo, kind of gives them different perspectives. That's number one. Second thing is that, during Yugoslavia, this brotherhood and unity idea was very much alive. People were, kind of proud about their diversity. Living in this kind of multi-ethnic setting was something normal. So people that are very much more open and more pragmatic when it comes to the approach of the older generations, because they remember some of our 50 plus participants through some of the programs. They still talk about Yugoslavia with some nostalgia, because they remember this period where they had a nice salary. Yugoslavia, even though it was a communist country, it was very much open, and the incomes were good, so they could provide for their families. And I mean, this multi-ethnicity didn't play an important roles as such. However, with youngsters, there is always reluctancy at the beginning, because I think this is the fear of unknown. They learned from the legacy from the war and from their parents, the angry Serbs or the bad Albanians, and so these are the attitudes that sometimes we have to kind of fight, and those require additional efforts of ours to kind of persuade them to get engaged. And the kind of the advantage that the older generations of the oldies have is that they speak each other's language. So that's also another kind of aspect of the whole reconciliation that helps in this regard. And when we had one of the activities on the bridge itself, we have all these who were kind of passing by and seeing the visiting the activity itself, and they were there was a exhibition of the pictures of old Mitrovica, what they remember from the 60s and 70s, and they would remember, and they would bring their grandkids and their children, okay, this is the place where I went to school. So it was very kind of emotional at the same time. And I mean, I have to say that the older generation, especially women, are more receptive towards being exposed to the other side, if you like. And especially, I mean, Kosovo is such a patriarchal society, men-dominated society, so women are more open. They don't...
Even though there's a female president.
Yes,
still.
Yes, but they're very much open, especially when it comes to economic empowerment, they are, very practical. when and where? These are two questions when we invite them over for the men like to complicate a bit things and talk about politics and the war and this and that. But again,
I just wanted to add on to what Nemanja was saying, but from a different perspective. So our work is heavily dependent on the donors' funds. And with that, we have to also follow donors' agenda. So the emphasis throughout the years has been much on youth. While do we agree, that there is a lot of work to be done with youngsters, because you have those, let's say, imagine those that are born in 99 and onwards. They grew up in a completely, they don't know how it was before, how the older generation does remember, and how they advise younger generations, that whatever they're doing, it's not really going to be beneficial in any way for them. Something that we talked about in CBM is about like how can we, what are the initiatives and the activities and maybe programs that we can develop that also invites older generation, so before. So something that it's oftentimes that they are also being neglected. I mean, they find their own way to manage with all the challenges that we have in our city, in our context. But also I think that because of donor dependency and because of the funds and because of maybe the urgency at the moment, there is a much bigger focus on youth. But and we had a question today in Max's class about media literacy, comparing from the US point and then to our context. And one student asked us, how do you deal with older generations being not being very media literate? And we actually have the opposite way, speaking about the conflict and about the news, about the negative aspects. So older generations are through the propaganda, and they can understand much that this is why distinguish, like they can tell oh, this is whatever, and this is important. Younger generation is that it has much bigger problem than that. And also this is something that we tackle through some of our programs through civic education schools, and one of the topics is media literacy. So how can kids identify propaganda, fake news, how not to engage in how to fact check them, and all these things. Yes.
Finally. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I knew it, and I'm a bit amazed. I also applied myself to work in CBM.
Yes.
So the thing is, I spent a lot of time in Mitrovica. I belong to an Albanian community, but I come from and they might confirm this, from a very southern city of Kosovo, and it's much more multicultural. So
for me, the most beautiful city.
For me too. But so when I first moved to Mitrovica for education, I was 20. That's when I realized how much tension there is.
Yes,
I never encountered my neighbors back in my parents' house in prison. We were Serb neighbors, two elderly couple, but I mean, still, to me, it was nothing unusual.
Nothing unusual.
But when I moved to Mitrovica, I saw how much the deep is segregation, and I started to understand a little better. Also, I was the first one, I'm going to go to North when the barricades were there. And they were like, are you crazy? What are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, it's weird. Why would you not at least cross and whatever? My question is very personal, and you don't have to answer by any means, but I'm just curious. I don't think you guys are old, young.
Thank you.
How do you feel? I learned some things when I crossed to the northern part and started making friends with Serbs, and that's when I realized what is their perspective. And because I, as an Albanian living in the south, I did not share those problems, and I would never learn if I didn't interact with people. But I was, for instance, just an example, I was very appalled to see one of my friends living in the north, a Serbian lady. She used to pay around 50 euros for a taxi to drive her from north to Pristina whenever she needed. And I was just like, hey.
Why don't you use the bus?
Yeah, I'm like, Yelena, 2 euros is the bus that will take you from the bridge all the way down to the bridge to the. She's like, I just don't feel comfortable. And many times I offered her either rides with my car or we took the bus together. So as two young Serbian men, how do you feel in Kosovo? How do you feel discriminated? Do you feel like you belong? Do you feel like you're crossing the ethnic barriers? Do you feel like I also learned that, a couple of my Serb friends also living in Kosovo, in Raičević, they were like, we are going to party in Tirana in Albania, which is the capital of Albania. I was like, I don't feel comfortable going and partying in Pristina, which is their city almost there.
Right.
So this is more like.
And you have people who can party better in Pristina than party in the south part of it.
Yeah. So I'm like, what is your take on that? Like, and you don't have to answer, but.
No, we will, of course. If I can just start like briefly. Since I grew up in mixed neighborhood, I mean, for me, that was a normal thing. Like I was playing with Albanian friends, playing football or whatever, playing in the street all day and kind of learning to curse each other in each other's languages. Yes, hanging out, and that was a normal thing for me. I never had this ethnic barrier in my life ever again. I think that is one of the reasons. But interesting enough, when the city was divided, I never crossed the bridge to the other side. When I applied to work in CBM, that was my first crossing of the bridge after the war. So that was like already 12 years after the war, 13. Nemanja was already working there, but he was always like easygoing out, like, oh, it's fine, you just cross it. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, how? Just like, they're gonna know I'm a Serbian, they're gonna have problems, like I don't feel really safe, I don't feel comfortable. And he says, don't worry, I'm gonna wait for you at the other side. I was also asking, talking about with my family members, with my uncle, do you think it's safe? He says, like, it's completely fine, don't worry about it. Don't feel pressured from all the challenges that we face, and you go do your thing. I was shaking when I was crossing that bridge. I'm not gonna lie, I was shaking because the city that I used to know lost that image like overnight. Like I remember when the bombing started, and you wake up one day and then you just see the houses are burned, that your Albanian neighbors are gone, you don't know what happened to them. You really feel awful. I was 10 at that time. So then, the division and of course the narratives and everything. So I was shaking, but crossed the bridge. When I crossed it and I saw people passing by, not even caring that I'm hit and I'm there, it was like, the kind of weight was, it was off my shoulder. I do not feel at all kind of like intimidated to be around in the south part. Nemanja and I go to shop there and go have coffee, and our office is there, of course. So for us, it's normal. But I think it's also a part of it. It's individual thing and how you feel about it. Part of it is being that we've never had any bad experiences. Maybe here and there, like some bad looks or whatever if you speak the language, but I don't really feel afraid to speak it. That's just my own thing. And I think more people should feel that way. And that's why they should, as you crossed, over barricades and you felt, okay or whatever, and you just wanted to try on your own. So this ethnic barrier doesn't really, I don't have it in my mind. However, these recent developments that are happening in our context is kind of like worrying me a little bit, because it seems that the Kosovo government is kind of have a lot of actions that kind of make you feel bad being a Serbian, Kosovo Serb. If you use your language, if you use your, sometimes you go and sign the document says like you have to write in Latin, you cannot write Cyrillics. So kind of like changes the way you feel, and I kind of understand that also what Albanians went through during the war and before that, and kind of like you experience that this from the other side. So that is what worries me at the moment. It's not that I feel scared or uncomfortable at all. I just feel worried that it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like it should be done in a different way, and nobody should feel and experience that. So I don't have any fear or being uncomfortable. Just that I worry that will make my community leave, and we already experienced them leaving like massively and moving out from our parts of the city and our northern part of Kosovo, which is really, really sad.
What he said. No, but all jokes aside, I mean, for me, Mitrovica doesn't have two parts. For me, this is one city, and that's how I was raised and how my parents kind of, and I always share this example that when my father passed away 2 years ago, we also had Albanian neighbors and friends of his who attended the funeral, which for me was such a great thing. But my mom was super emotional simply because of this aspect, and especially after you hear, like you Google anything about Mitrovica relations or these problems that the Serbs and Albanians are facing in Kosovo, only negative things. For us, again, we were lucky enough that we never had, probably because our intentions are good, we don't see kind of ethnic label as the first thing to kind of notice in the person. One thing that is kind of different is the language barrier. So that's the only thing that kind of makes people uncomfortable, because I mean, you go into a public bus, but then some people don't even know how to say, I want one ticket to Pristina. That's the reason. And when the situation escalates, where there are incidents happening, sometimes you get targeted because the groups are so passionate and so affected by the whole tension that they take it on the wrong person. You can just be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and it happened in the past. So many of these things, so people, that's why they are a bit reluctant. And some of the things that through our work we want to put emphasis on is that just what you said. No, there are no public transportation buses from the north to Pristina. So you have to go to the south, and then from south there, assuming that you know the language or know how to buy a ticket, in Albanian, for example. So those are the very concrete things that we also, as a grassroots organization, try to impact or put the influence on the government as such. But for us, again, we've never had, thankfully, like these are very minor incidents that might have happened, or people were just, ask you where you are crossing, like what's the time, just to see, how do you reply? But yeah, it's either that or the two of us already speak a bit of Albanian, so we do communicate okay, like it's basic communication, but for us this is
even our friends are afraid to go in the south.
Yes.
And we work for 15 and me 12 years. I'm like, it's just, you saw how the bridge is big. It's just like 20 steps, let's say, like, and you are there. Like, it's easy for you guys are not afraid. I'm like, yes. Did anything happen to us? Like, we would have told you, like, it's completely fine. But also me personally, I never, even if I'm in the south, for example, at the ATM, somebody really old, not older than us, asked me, like, can you help me with the card? And I always say, I don't really speak Albanian very well. And they're like, oh, it's fine. They either continue in Serbian. I really am not, I'm not afraid. But I also think that the main problem is that people don't really have this resistance, individual resistance. Mm-hmm. So they are not really
peer pressure.
It's peer pressure, but they kind of, we try to, impact that through our work, but also personally. Like you can't stay away from that. Like it's you that can resist, and it's up to you if you want to be part of that narrative or not. If majority of people see through, what the governments are really doing, and that this is all played by them, basically, I have to both Serbia and Kosovo. I think that we would have a much different picture.
We have time for one more question.
The character of you guys and your organization really shown through your presentation, and I think Coffee Fest sounds like a great time. The situation with the Serbian government controlling a lot of the northern part of Mitrovica is really interesting to me. That sounds like it's very challenging with like seeing the needs of those people be met. How do those interactions play out? How can the Kosovo government meet the needs of Kosovo Serbs in that area? Is it easy for them to do that if they wanted to? Or what kind of battles do you guys face with making sure the needs of that population is met?
I think that there is a lack of will by the political structures both in Kosovo and in Serbia. And one of the things that we forgot to mention during the presentation is Kosovo is the second poorest country in Europe. So it has lots of challenges that is facing, and this is something that I always emphasize. I don't think that the biggest problem in Kosovo is among Serbs and Albanians. I think that the economic aspect of Kosovo is something that people are affected heavily by. So I don't think that, when both Kosovo and Serbia, when they have nothing else to offer, and if the political leaders and the parties who really want to remain in power, the biggest or the proven tactics from the region that they use is ethno-nationalism. So they use this quite well and quite smartly kind of to remain there. Even if you ask, we had the open and direct communication with the government of Kosovo, and we tell them, okay, but these are the needs of the people. We don't care about the political status or whether you recognize each other or not, but your decisions on the Brussels agreement, but also on the local level, on the central level, have a negative impact on the lives of ordinary citizens, us as well. Both of us live in the north part of the town, but when the situation escalates, we have to work remotely. How can you, like for us, it's very hard, like you don't do grassroots work behind your computer sitting in your cozy home. So, we have to abort all activities, we'll have different plans in place in order for us to continue. So the both governments know how to play well for their own benefits, not for the benefits of people. We are very critical towards the whole dialogue that is ongoing, especially towards the Kosovo government, of course, because we live there. We do try to provide some recommendations either individually or through a coalition of different organizations that are working in the field, so that we, as voice of the people, would tell them, okay, these are something that people these are the regulations, rules, and policies that you could implement on a local level that will improve the lives of people on the ground. Very simple and very concrete stuff, like the catastrophe issue, like people have issues of when you get you have a baby that you want to register into the system. You can't do this because Kosovo doesn't recognize the hospital documents issued in the north part of Mitrovica because they consider those illegal. So your child is kind of illegal or an alien in the country as such, while the government is kind of forcing you, but why don't you integrate into the society? So these are very specific and concrete issues that we try to emphasize and to put on the government's agenda. Of course, now we have elections coming in February 2025, so we expect a lot of, every time when the elections are approaching, Mitrovica is the biggest, card that the politicians are playing with, on both sides, I have to say, but now we're talking on Kosovo context, that they play to win the votes, and emphasizing that this is the biggest problem. While the unemployment rate in Kosovo is sky high, we have brain drain of young people who are, Kosovo is the youngest population-wise country in Europe that has so many potential, but many of the people are leaving. And then you have also a feedback that sometimes we receive from their parents, like, we lived during Yugoslavian time and we had this type of life. And then we fought for the independence of the new country with so much of promises, but then 4 out of 5 of my kids already left Kosovo for good. So, these are,
there is a huge gap between government and the people, meaning that because of the specificity of the context and the problems and issues, it's not the Brussels agreement that was agreed and signed on different points has to be implemented. Governments, they don't really care how it's going to be implemented. That's the issue. It leaves consequences in the people, and we, as Nemanja said, part of many different initiatives and coalitions, we try to emphasize that they have to include citizens into that type of implementation of those agreements and the points, but in a way that it would make their lives easier. So to say, guys, dinar is not going to be used anymore, Serbian currency. From that day to we have to start doing that. We can prolong it, but we have to find a way how you can still receive pensions, because you cannot cut them overnight. And this is what happened on the ground, and that left people really kind of with tied hands and really affect them negatively. So this is just a concrete example, but it's been going on since Brussels dialogue started. But that is, I think that is the main issue, that the government really doesn't include voices of the people into
and especially from Mitrovica, because it's very specific and the context is rather different than the ones in south part of Kosovo or in other areas like in Pristina. It's, so to say, mono-ethnic city where you don't have any Serbs living there. So of course that they don't face the same issues like the ones that live in multi-ethnic areas or live in the divided city. And I think this perception of the government is wrong. This is something that we, as an organization, but also through other organizations and also donors as major stakeholders in Kosovo, that we try to kind of influence or have an impact on.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Please join me in thanking Nemanja and Milivoje.
Thank you for honoring us and inviting us. Really, it was such a pleasure.
We invite you all to have coffee with us in Kosovo.
On the bridge.
On the bridge.